The adults we call citizen journalists, the youth we call interns, but it's still the same thing. It's helping us to put on the program and to grow out this news organization. We only launched a year ago, January, and we really want you to join in. So what we've done is we started a nonprofit organization to develop a curriculum for ethical journalism and video vocational training and plugging it into an internship year. And we're looking that we're going to be doing this as a full 2-semester course in the public school systems and also offering it to homeschoolers. But for you, who say, I don't have that much time, and I just want to get into this, is we are starting our first citizen journalist certification course. It's a 4-week program. We're doing it on Monday evening, starting on March 3rd, 2 hours in the evening, where we're going to be spending time covering really core topics and then talking about it so that you can be certified, have a press pass and everything, to represent the Peak News and go out and cover the areas of our community that you are passionate about. And so for more information, there is an application process, but it's pretty simple. But go on our website, thepeak.news, and go to the Citizen Journalist page, and there's a form on there. And again, we're starting this in just a week and a half. It's our first one. We're only taking a dozen students for this. So if you've been listening and wondering what this is all about, we will train you up and we'll send you out and support you so that you can be a citizen journalist covering our amazing area in the Pikes Peak region. How about that? So moving on, as this is Faith and Family Wednesday, we have with us as our guest and co-host Lisa Anderson, director of the Boundless Young Adults Ministry at Focus on the Family. She's also the host of the Boundless Show national radio program and podcast. And we're talking about the unique challenges facing today's young adults in the areas of life, relationship, faith, and more. So, Lisa, give us your background before we get into the subject matter more. How did you come to be the director of young adults at Focus on the Family?
Sure. Yeah, and I love telling this to young adults because when they come to me freaking out about their career path or lack of career path, and they say, well, Lisa, it just sounds like you have an amazing job. How did you even get there? You must have just had this trajectory that was amazing. I say, well, actually, I did go to college and I studied communication. Actually, I started out in English literature, but then I found my college advisor reciting poetry to himself in the dark in his office one day, and I said, I need to not become that. And so I doubled to communication with an emphasis in journalism, and then transitioned into PR, and I did PR for Focus on the Family for 11 years, which of course, given people love us or hate us, it seems, so never a dull day in PR for Focus. That said, I was able to meet a lot of great people, use communication in that sense. And while I was doing that, Boundless, this fledgling ministry at Focus on the Family for young adults, was one of my clients. And I was at the same time dating quite poorly. And so it was run by these 3 married dudes with their wives, and they had kids, and they kind of started mentoring me. And they're like, Lisa, you're dating poorly. And I was all offended, like, I know how to date, I know what I'm doing. And they're like, no, you seem to be dating losers. And so I took that to heart. I agreed that maybe they were correct. Well, at the same time, they said, we're also thinking of starting a podcast. And this was this is like late 2007. No one was podcasting back then. And they were just very entrepreneurial.
Blog Talk Radio.
Amazing. Yeah, and we'd had a blog going since 2004, which was also pretty innovative at the time. Anyway, they said, you're single, you like to talk, do you want to host this show? And I said, sure, I'm going to give it a try. And so that was about 17 years ago now. I actually was a young adult then when I was hosting it. And so now I'm kind of that fun, hopefully older aunt with my arm around the shoulder of young adults saying, here's the train wreckage that you don't need to get into that I already did. And so let's do it better, do it differently. And that's how I came to Boundless.
Okay, wonderful. Well, what are young adults, and we're defining that, let's say 18 to 35. Let's lock in on that group. What are they struggling with that we as the older generation might be clueless with, that maybe the younger generations, their siblings don't even know that they're dealing with, but are sort of coming into? What are the things that they struggle with? They might not even know that these are things they're struggling with, but we as parents, as mentors, really need to know.
Well, I'll start with an assumption I feel that a lot of older adults make about younger adults, and that is that they don't care at all about marriage and family. That's not actually true. So, for example, you take the average millennial, they actually are very aspirational towards marriage. They think highly of it. They want to be married. The problem is they don't think they can do it successfully. Now, some of this is because they're the product of the largest divorce generation in history, the boomers, and they haven't seen good examples. Their parents split up, they grew up in single parent homes, maybe they never knew their dad. And so they're like, you know what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to practice at marriage. I'm going to go through, cycle through a bunch of relationships. I'm probably going to cohabit and live with my partner, try it out, see if we click, and go from there. So as a result, we're seeing the delay of marriage profoundly in our culture.
And we're seeing that with Christians youth also.
Almost parallel for Christians. So now the average marrying ages are about 28 and 30 for women and men respectively, whereas they were about 22 and 24 back in, say, the mid 70s. So really a shift there. And it's a challenge because I think there are a lot of things we're seeing culturally as a result of that. It's now this a scene, maybe generationally, where you might be 30 years old, you're going to have friends who are single, you're going to have friends who are married, you're going to have, you go into the average first grade classroom, parents of those first graders, there might be some that are 26, there are going to be some that are 46. And so it's really kind of creating a lot of confusion for younger adults.
Talk about career and finance challenges.
Yeah, and this is just the challenge of no longer can they get the things that they were promised by just sheer hard work. So this idea that just get a good degree, go from there, see what you can do. It's just not available to them. They have massive student loan debt. They are underemployed. They're gigging on the side. They're burning out. There are entitlement things that come into play, sure, but at the same time, they're just really struggling to understand where their place is, what can they do with that, and how are they going to get ahead.
And Colorado Springs is not an inexpensive place.
It's gotten worse since COVID. Oh my word, yeah. So I'm hearing it all the time.
Now talk about pressures from social issues, especially for Christians who are out there in the workforce where it seems like if there is a morality, it's none we recognize.
Right, and if you're a younger adult, you're at the lowest end of the totem pole, so you're sitting there having your boss tell you you have
DEI and everything.
Yeah, DEI, put pronouns on, do all the things, otherwise you're going to get fired, you're going to get shut down, you're going to get canceled, you're not going to get promoted. That is a huge pain point for young adults struggling to stand up for their faith in a secular work environment.
So, I'm sure the list is longer, but on those major points, what can we as parents, as the church, as just people who care about young people, what can we do to help them navigate when we didn't experience these things? I mean, it's not like other generations where, hey, we know exactly what you went through because it's the same for thousands of years.
Right.
There's been a huge shift in just 10 years.
I think the first thing to do is be a good listening ear. I mean, to hear and understand the struggles of millennials and Gen Z in particular, and not be, you're a bunch of crybabies, you're just these trophy kids, you don't care about working hard. Some of that may be true. Okay, we'll own it. Okay, let's own it. But at the same time, maybe ask good questions, leading questions of what this could look like, how maybe you could help. Millennials in particular love the idea of mentorship. I make a call for mentors all the time to boomers and Xers, and I say, man, step into the lives of your young adults. And all these older folks are like, well, I don't really have anything to offer, or I don't know if I have time, or I don't want to do some big old thing and have them latch onto me for 15 years of their life. Well, maybe you can just show them how to create a budget, or maybe you can show them how to apply for a job, because these are skills that they may not have. And so there's always something by starting that conversation that you can get involved in.
So we have about a minute or so left, but to talk about the Boundless Ministry and the radio show podcast and where people can get more resources, because obviously we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, well, we are specifically for young adults, many of whom are single because of the demographics. So we talk about singleness and dating and all the things there. And a ministry of focus on the family that is saying, we have our arm around you to help you navigate some of the biggest decisions you'll have of your life. Education, career, finding a spouse, owning your faith in this culture, and all the things that looks like. And so we have a blog, we have articles, we have our weekly show, we have social media. We're really a community for young adults to be part of the conversation, to be heard, and to hear from others and get some good advice moving forward.
And is there actual meetings?
Mostly digital, mostly online. In fact, we're 23% international, which is amazing. But that online, the digital space for digital natives, young adults, it's a great place for them to be heard.
Do you have events?
We do.
Okay.
We do. A lot of them are scattered around the U.S., like as I travel and speak places and whatnot. But we want to bring another big event back, and so we're going to hopefully make that happen sometime soon.
Maybe we can do something together.
Be
We
fun.
like doing events here. We love getting the community together, and we we really appreciate young people and what they're going through and why we have the internship program and everything else.
Absolutely.
So let's try to get them off the screens.
There you go. That's
They-
another whole topic.
They might
Yeah.
actually meet somebody. Okay, the website is boundless.org. That's easy to remember, boundless.org, and you have a newsletter they
We
can sign
do.
up for.
If folks go to boundless.org, it'll say sign up for our newsletter. They can do that. They're going to get each week, only weekly, everything that we have going on so they can understand their kids and their grandkids and all the things that they're going through.
Wonderful. Well, if you are a young adult, which now goes up to I think 85 years old. I think
Just
where
about, yep.
we're taking that. If you're a young adult, if you're young at heart, adult, or you have youth in your life, let them know about boundless.org to help them navigate what's going on, especially if they're Christian, but not only if they're Christian. When we come back, Lisa Anderson from Boundless, up at Focus, is going to be talking about icebreakers for opening up effective conversations with young adults. You're listening to The Peak. We'll be right back. Cool. Got 3 minutes?
Cool.
Good.
About 10 so I can
Good
read
show.
the
Let's
things
flow.
down. Yeah.
Okay, so this, I gotta find out, this is where he comes in and tells me how long. Yes, come on in. What's the deal?
The gym rat.
Yes.
It's an old file and it's 2 minutes and 26 seconds.
226. And what's it about?
Puffing cars.
What?
Puffing cars. It's like protecting the kids and the family about what thieves are doing. So
Is that where people are stealing cars when they're like on in the winter? Because I know
they're
there's a,
heating them up.
when you're heating them up
They're heating the cars up.
and
Yes.
keeping them from being stolen. So
Yes.
the puffing. Okay. I knew that term. I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
So he's
just
ranting about, but what's the subject of the, like, what does he get into in the rant?
puffing cars.
No, but I mean, but what's the point? Like, does he
It's like trying to protect the family, the kids. and
protecting
stuff.
your family?
Well,
Yeah.
You know, he talks about that people say like, oh, it's bad because it's dangerous. Some guys are like, oh, it's like food, like,
Mm.
like even people have to do some stuff with foods. From
Okay.
out around.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I'm trying to relate it to telling people what it's about.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
so it's about car theft more than anything else?
it's about
Protecting our family
it's
from,
about like how come now because of people thieves we can't heat up our
oh, okay. So
get
the,
rid of the thieves.
okay. Well, I mean, all you need to do is, you need to lock the car.
Well, but your keys are-
Yes.
And the fact that,
well,
what?
but your keys are in there.
Well, most people have
Yeah, like a
remote starts at this point. You gotta have, Jim's maybe driving some old stuff.
Yeah, like
That's why I think cars is like people say it's dangerous because like you don't want to
Right,
Yeah.
but with remote starts and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I told him that my mom usually just put them in the garage and then keep it locked. You know what I'm
Yeah, but
saying?
you don't want it running in the garage.
I know.
That's how you kill everybody.
I just thought the garage would be like
Okay.
a warm place.
Okay, thanks, sir.
No problem.
Okay. Back in about 30. So do you have anything like specific, just to ask you what some of them are, or do you have any
Yeah.
specific? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through those right now,
Okay.
some of the top ones I would say.
Okay.
So, yep.
So we'll have about 4 minutes
Okay.
of content after I introduce you.
Okay.
And just look, this one we don't have music because I throw to a pre-recorded segment, so.
Okay.
So when you see me do wrap up, I
Okay.
am the plane.
Yep. So I'll
Guess
maybe
we
share a
can't go on.
couple and then pause and let you comment.
Yeah, we'll see, maybe we
Yeah.
can,
Okay.
probably come up with something. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Peaks News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer here on Faith and Family Wednesday on the Peak with Lisa Anderson and spending the hour with her. She is the director of the Boundless Youth Ministry, Young Adults Ministry at Focus on the Family, and host of the Boundless Show, radio program, and podcast. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about how to open up conversations with young people. You know, I'm what's called a professional talker. This is what I do, and yet I'm not a small talker. I'm not. I like to deal with issues, and it like alienates everybody. I have a very hard time, and my children are between the ages of 21 1 and 12. And I just don't relate. I'm not good at opening up conversations. I just like get into heated discussions right away. So Lisa, how can you help me?
Well, maybe this might,
With my becoming my young adults.
yeah, this advice may be for you then, because I'm going to start off by a few things not to ask young adults and not to talk about. So one would be asking
I'm
them.
taking notes.
Right. One is asking them, why are you still single, or why aren't you married yet, or what's your problem? Why don't you want to date anyone? The other is maybe along the lines of, how did you vote in the last election? That's the surefire way to crash and burn and devolve any conversation. But you probably won't, necessarily like the answer, so that could be tricky. And then also, you don't want to ask them, hey, why are you so lazy and entitled, and why can't you get a job? Why are you still in my basement? So start out by winning with some things where they can win in that space. So you know what young adults love to talk about, Chaim? It's personal growth, anything around personality. I mean, young adults today have taken about 12 personality tests on average. I mean, they're all out there, the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the Strengths Finders, all that. They do that and they just love to talk about that. What does this mean? How do we relate to one another? And so if you've done one of those and you talk about opening conversations with something like that, I think that's great. They also love to talk about hobbies and their travel aspirations, because if they're in a job that maybe they don't like, they're hoping for something more. And so maybe talking about those things that are things they do in their off time, things they wish they could do if they could travel anywhere, where would they go with that? I think that's great, a great place to start. And then kind of in light of that, asking their opinion on something and actually listening. I think that's something that's really important for us to do. And to the minute they say something that you disagree with, not shutting them down or giving them the facts or just
That's
the
impossible.
fire hose of it, this is why you're insane. That's not going to be helpful. Just say, you're going to have to say, and you can write this down. This is a script. Interesting. How did you come to that conclusion? Tell me more about that. Because what they're going to tell you is a story. They're very interested in connecting their personal story and their experience to why they believe what they believe, much more so than facts and statistics. So you can win in that space if you can bring it back to story.
What about having spiritual conversations with those who are, Christian? Are they getting deeper? I mean, it can be pretty shallow even with adults, but
Yeah.
where are you finding that they're at as far as being able to have sort of biblical worldview discussion?
I think they're willing to go deep. I think it's a challenge because maybe they're not biblically literate. But then I'm saying, you know what? I'm meeting a lot of Xers and boomers who aren't that biblically literate as well. So I think the great place to start here is by talking about what are some of the challenges you're experiencing? What are the hurts that you have in your life? Where do you wish you could go from here? What are you trusting God with? And then the number one question I say where people can win with young adults on the spiritual playing field is, how can I pray for you? That opens the door for them to share as much or as little about any situation that they would like to bring up to you. And then you go in 2 weeks later and you say, hey, how's that going? And it gives you an opportunity for follow-up.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you for all of those tips. I've been taking notes fast and furious.
All right.
We've been here for the hour on the Peak with Lisa Anderson, director of Boundless, young adults ministry at Focus on the Family, and the Boundless Show podcast and radio show. Go to boundless.org for all that information. Lisa Anderson, thanks so much for being on the Peak.
My privilege.
And now, Jim Miller, Just a Guy, and the Peak Rants. And Jim is ranting about, well, this is a good rant, about thieves in our neighborhood and how we should be dealing with that. Jim Miller.
Their headphones.
Okay.
That's right.
No, we're not. Dudes. Okay. Okay, we're not getting out a winner. You can't pull an old segment and just play it.
Oh,
No, you gotta listen. Should have said it's a best of segment. I gotta spend more time teaching this guy stuff. Okay. Okay.
so this
Yes.
is the short break and then into the next one. Gotcha.
Yeah, there'll be 3 minutes of commercial when his rant is done, then I do a 2-minute close, and then 10 seconds later, we're back onto this Partners in the Gospel. So-
Alrighty.
So,
You're the problem because people might steal your stuff. No, the problem isn't there are thieves, that there are terrible people in society that just get a blind eye turned towards. No consequences for their actions. None of them ever have to like get in a fist fight or, their stuff's not being stolen, right? Maybe start stealing the thieves' stuff. They start stealing stuff, just steal the stuff they stole and return it or something. I don't know what to do about it. But you're not the problem. I'm not the problem. One to have a nice warmed up car to take the kids to school and go to work and toil in the soil and get everything freaking done throughout the day, right? You're not the issue. I'm not the issue. The issue is the thieves. I really, extremely, immensely disagree with the law enforcement approach on that, saying that puffing is bad. You're the problem, and someone might steal your car while you're trying to warm it up and take care of your family and do what needs to be done on day-to-day life. Remember, we want it better, we have to be better. I'm Jim Miller, I'm just a guy who
do you know Jim?
I don't actually.
He ran for mayor in the last election.
Okay.
Just a real interesting character. So he's our, if you know Andy Rooney from 60 Minutes, if you remember, he's our sort of sarcastic,
Okay. Yep.
crotchety guy at the end of the program to
Okay.
sort of loosen up from the news from things. So
That's funny.
now he's running for city council.
Okay.
So,
Huh.
but he really is. He's just this working guy,
That's
but
funny.
he's a character. So.
I've only half jokingly said to our producers of the parenting podcast at Focus that I should do a segment called Parenting Advice from a Single Woman with No Children and make it kind of ranty because
Yeah.
especially my siblings who all have married and have kids and stuff, I'm always like, what's up with these moms and like trashed out minivans? Like, why can't you keep your vans
Yeah.
clean? And why are these kids eating in the van? It's just kind of a funny
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shtick is good. It's
Yeah.
good. People, come back for it. And,
Mhm.
So, if you would like, since you do a podcast, those segments where we have the reports, we're actually looking. We have the guests fill them, but that's not the purpose of why we created them. They're
Okay.
supposed to be actually news reports or something. So, if you'd like to either do something original or cut a piece out of your podcast, something
Oh,
about
okay.
4.5 minutes.
Okay.
Do a regular segment like monthly, and then of course plug your